got like nicely faded
that boy
up.
Freshly faded. That boy
So
freshly
there's this guy that I come to here in Tuscaloosa. It's Rivera's, and man, it takes a long time. But it's all good, man.
Does.
I know, yeah, and he does a good job. So you can't rush good work. So with that said, man, I appreciate you guys being here. You know what? That video 6 years ago, I remember it, and I was just talking about it. It's hilarious. We look like we're reporting from Mars or something like that. But I originally started NM Preps, which is a website now defunct in New Mexico, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. So my first video on YouTube is 17 years ago, and I'm literally holding up how I used to do it. So I used to cover high school football games in New Mexico. I would hold up my laptop and I would report like from the high school game. So, man, been on YouTube for a minute.
A true OG to the platform. No, we're glad to have you on the network again, man. You do tremendous work. So I previewed you this too a little bit, sent you some examples. This is how this works. We're about to try to shit on Alabama. Your job is to defend them and defend them honorably. Are you prepared?
That's cool with me, man.
All right, let's get after it. I'm going to start off the arguments, and this one's obvious, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of A&M, okay, that football team had an ability to run, or actually has the ability to stop you guys from running the football. I think it held Alabama to 29 yards. However, the inability for this offensive line, outside of that, y'all been running the football successful. Offensive lines play well. Outside of that, though, the inability for this offensive line to both provide clean pockets and simultaneously Jalen Milroe not bail out from the complete pockets that are rarely provided. This football team's going to give up very, very timely sacks in football games moving forward. I think it might cost them a football game. Kyle, what say you?
It already did cost them a football game. I mean, and I might shit on Alabama with you. I mean, look, the truth of the matter here is if you're in Tuscaloosa and if you're from this area, you are not happy with what transpired in week 2. And that was against Texas, where Alabama took one on the chin. And a lot of that has been because of the inconsistent play. And a lot of that has been because of the left tackle. And that's Caden Proctor, who has been, who had a really poor performance in the beginning of the year. He's had 2 games on Pro Football Focus where he's really came with it, Mississippi State and against Tennessee. Now, against Tennessee, felt that he showed some really good signs. Tennessee has the 4th best pass rush in the entire country. And the guy graded out with 77.1 or something like that on Pro Football Focus. We're seeing growth. However, they've still gone 6 protection in some of those situations, putting either Jace McClellan back there or Robbie Oots, who is their 260-pound tight end, to provide Jalen Milroe. Well, Jalen Milroe has been sacked 31 times. What the hell is going on? Well, a lot of that is it all in the offensive line? No, of course not. There's been a lot of times where Jalen Milroe, it's been coverage sacks where he hasn't got rid of the football to throw it to the mascot or throw it to Saban's. Saban has like a security guy. His name is Cedric. He's the one who literally puts the water bottle on the table. That's who you got to throw the ball to, right? Like on the sidelines. He's ate some of those, and some of those have been on him. So, yeah, I mean, are these timely sacks? Could they come to play later on during the season? Absolutely. But they've already came to play. Everybody already knows that. So, I mean, saying that is something that's already taken place. And with that said, the craziest thing about the Texas game, and look, Alabama has transformed from the beginning of the season to where they are now. But Texas, they only had 4 coming at Alabama. It was 4-on-5. And they just beat Alabama in the trenches. That was probably the worst I've seen Alabama be beat in the trenches since the 2017 season when I first got here, when Auburn's defensive line just annihilated Alabama. Crazy thing was Alabama lost that game at Auburn, didn't even play in the SEC championship, still made the playoffs, and then still won the championship.
So that would be 1 loss for Alabama. That's a fraud. Offensive line frauds. What do you got?
All right, I was looking at it today, and this is basically a preset. If you want to compete for a national title, you have to have this. And right now, Alabama does not. They do not have a top 30 scoring offense. You look back at the history of this, of the college football playoff, national champions, and typically people who compete in the college football playoff have at least a top 30 offense. Alabama is the only team right now in the top 12 of the college football playoff rankings not to have a top 30 scoring offense. So make the case of how Alabama can overcome that and still compete for a national title.
Mm-hmm. I like this setup. You guys have the two guys in college in the back here, and the main guy. I love this setup. This is a good show. If you're new to this show, like and subscribe. This is good. I like
Sounds
this.
like you're new to this show.
So okay, to counter that. Obviously, the easy thing would be like, oh, well, they got Coach Saban. He's going to do whatever it takes. No. The way to counter that is Alabama's defense, right? And this team is built on defense. And the second best thing about this team, maybe even the best thing about this team, is the special teams play, right? People who talk football who don't talk about special teams don't know football. Special teams is such a vital part of every single football game. You want to go win a football game? Try winning it without a field goal kicker. Right? Alabama missed 2 field goals last year, and guess what it did? Cost them the playoffs. You don't think Will Riker thinks about those kicks all the time? But the team is built on defense, okay? And if this offense, in which they're doing, they're improving, and if they ever catch up with the defense, which they might, and I don't know because it's a pretty good defense, and the best thing about this defense is they're complete. Defensive line is good, inside linebackers, edge rushers, secondary. If they ever catch up with that defense, they're going to win the national title. There's a lot of parity this year. I don't think you can say, and you guys dive into the numbers. There's not a clear-cut favorite this year. Georgia hasn't played anybody. They're about to start their gauntlet. Michigan is about to get kicked out of college football. In Ohio State, they have 2 good wins against Notre Dame and against Penn State. Notre Dame's a pretender, so is Florida State. But Ohio State is a good football team with a lot of weapons. So Alabama's best way to counter that offense is their defense. Tennessee thought they could run the football. Ole Miss thought they could come in here and do things to Alabama. Their second half adjustments on defense. Try beating Alabama in the second half. They've done a really good job. And plus this, Alabama is battle tested. Alabama, think about this, fellas. You guys are the statistical guys. You guys are doing the research. They went against Steve Sarkisian, one of the best offensive minds in college football. They went against Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive minds in college football. I know that Texas A&M is a sinking ship, but those wide receivers are elite. Musa Muhammad, Anaya Smith, Evan Stewart, those guys are really good. I know they're playing with the backup quarterback. I'm just saying the defense is tested. This LSU team is going to give them everything they got by the number 1 quarterback in college football, but the defense is tested, and the defense is going to be really challenging for anybody else to beat down the stretch.
All right, Kyle, I got to let you know. We believe here on this, at least I do. These guys have been giving me shit for weeks.
Don't say we.
I am of the firm belief, position player background here. I think special teamers are just weird ass dudes. Kickers are not football players. Punters occasionally are. On this channel, I have a theory that special teams only matter if you suck at them. If you're good at them, we never talk about them. But if you're just trash at them, we obviously have to talk about them. So I think you kind of hit on that. We talk about special teams when they're good and when they're bad. But again, they don't really matter unless they're really, really bad, in my opinion. And if you just want to be good at special teams, then hire Shane Beamer to be your head football coach. But most people don't do that. They want to be good at either offense or defense. So that's kind of my standpoint on that. But I think you did a really, really good job of balancing out that. So I will 1-to-1. We'll give you that one. I got another one for you. All right, look, told you about it. Texas A&M came out and they boxed you. They were able to stand in the ring and go toe-to-toe with you. But they can't cover worth of shit like a middle school football team. So what happens when you actually run up against a football team that can go 4 quarters boxing with you, limit that run game, and simultaneously cover you and make Jalen Milroe actually throw into tight windows? What happens then, Kyle?
You put in their secret weapon, Tyler Buckner. Just kidding.
Oh, my God. Order in the court.
No, look, at some point during this year, we're going to see Jalen Milroe take over a game with his legs and with his arm. That's something that he hasn't done all season. There's this rumor. I think it was even Alabama who started this, like on the message boards, that he had like a hamstring. And they're like, that's why he's not running and all this stuff. He almost ran against Arkansas, and then he got tripped up. He is one of the fastest guys on the team. Isaiah Bond, who's the wide receiver, is the fastest. Jalen Milroe is, 6'2", 235 pounds, and he's also up there as being one of the fastest players. Alabama has to get they don't have to control, and I think this has been one of the biggest problems about Tommy Rees, who I don't think has necessarily done an overwhelming job in his first year at Alabama. You can't control Jalen Milroe. You have to unleash him. right? And I think they're trying to do that throughout this season. And I think at some point you just got to be like, and I think they're starting to do it, but at some point you're going to be like, dude, you're the best athlete on the field. You're the best football player on the field. Go do your thing and just play football. And they're starting to allow him to do that. But at some point, you're going to have to deal with that. And when you start to deal with that, there's going to be no way that you can stop him because he's an absolute animal when he takes off.
Yep. There's been some – I thought there was some kind of – I think – was it McElroy that came out preseason was like, this guy's fast, but he's not like an instinctual runner. Have you seen some improvements in have they called any design runs for him, Kyle? Just before we get into another point here, are they starting to design some quarterback runs for him?
I think McElroy is great, right? But he also said that Ty Simpson was going to start. I'm just saying.
It's true. It's a fact.
Look, they've done one design run, seriously, or two maybe. But that's it. Like, they've kind of gone away from that altogether. The thing about Jalen Milroe, he is fast north and south. In terms of what, like, east to west, he doesn't have that type of escapability that Bryce Young had. So, like, Bryce Young, and I can't believe this nickname didn't stick with Bryce Young, but when he played Georgia the first time, they were like, he's the gingerbread man. You cannot get to him. The NFL is a different animal, right? Clearly, we get that. Right, yeah, exactly. But he, like, side to side, he doesn't have that escapability, but get him north to south, you can't catch him. So that's kind of the thing with him. And I think he's – look, like, there's a really good YouTube video with Roman Harper and Jalen Milroe. They're breaking down film, and you can literally see him going through his progression. So I think he's working on himself and trying to become a passer. And he said this on Monday when we talked to him in the press conference. He said that, look, I don't even do work on anything with my running. It's all just passing and understanding passing concepts. So why would you? I mean, the dude's like a 4.4, just natural. So at some point he's going to start to run, and I think it'll be in a pivotal game where they need him to, and he'll do it.
What do you got for him, Kirby?
All right, so I think it's safe to say that Alabama is a more defensive team than they are offensive.
Correct, 100%.
Looking back at it, I've kind of tried to think, how have primary defensive teams fared against going into national championship hopes? And I think looking at it, this is a 2019 reskin of Georgia.
Oh,
it's mediocre quarterback play. They rely heavily on the run. They use they use a very good defense to succeed. Questionable quarterback play, and I mean, look what happened when that team went up against the number one offense in the country.
LSU throwed it.
Exactly. Bama's playing the LSU number one offense this week. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this offense is going to do well against its LSU. I don't know if it's going to work.
What do you got, Kyle?
That LSU team, when it came in, they were so dirty. It was crazy. But Alabama also had an amazing team. That was probably one of the best football games I've ever seen, honestly. Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, all those players. Remember, I think someone put out a graphic and they listed all the NFL guys on that squad. It was crazy.
20. Yeah.
And Coach Saban said tonight, just an hour ago, that 2019 LSU team is very similar to this team, which is scary if you're an Alabama football fan, because that says a lot. With that said, this defense is a lot. I guess they would be better than the 2019. I don't know. It's hard to compare like defenses and offenses, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, this team is built on defense. So you really have an elite defense that is battle tested, as I mentioned earlier, going against Jaden Daniels and all his weapons. That's what it comes down to. And I think when you look at this game, and Alabama really hasn't been able to run the football effectively. It's not like they're, just ground and pound. I mean, Jace McClellan runs for like 115 tough yards. There's never like an overwhelming game where they have like 200 yards by one of the running backs. It's kind of a Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams and maybe some of the Jam Miller as well. But they haven't been able just to dominate in terms of running the football. But I think when you look to keys to the game, and I said this earlier on another show, Alabama would be best suited to try to run the game and to try to control the time of possession. You guys have probably seen games are quicker now with all these commercials that they've added. Like the game against Ole Miss was 3 hours exactly. The two games that they lost last year, LSU and Tennessee, those games are 4-hour games. It's an hour difference. So control the time of possession, put points on the board. But this is the worst thing about Alabama is every single time that they come out in the first quarter, their drives never transition to points. It's kind of like that boxing match where they're kind of just jabbing, but nothing's really struck. They're more of a second half type team. And if they do that against LSU, they'll lose. Like they cannot play catch up against a team with this amount of talent on the offensive side. You have to come out And even if you get into the red zone, you get points on the board from Will Reichert, then do it. But you cannot play from behind against LSU.
Putting up 366 total yards per game this year, I would imagine you can't necessarily get into a shootout with anybody this year. At least offensively, that's what it looks like right now. Bama can cover anybody, Kyle. I think with Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think Caleb Downs has really, really improved over the last several weeks, as has Key, the transfer there at safety. They've allowed 200 yards passing in they've allowed fewer than 250 yards passing in 6 out of their 9 games. They're really, really good against the pass, but they've allowed 100 yards on the ground 5 out of the last 9. What happens if a football team can consistently run the ball against a football team that's not necessarily giving it up, but they've shown an ability to, hey, you can consistently run the ball and stay diligent running the football against Alabama. Hey, this is an LSU football team, Kyle, that put up 275 yards on the ground against Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, teams that have been able to run the football in the past historically, there hasn't been many. Those teams usually win the game, but it's been more the teams that are able to beat Alabama are the teams that go up tempo and are able just to continue to maintain the chains, moving down with a quarterback that is accurate. They go no huddle and they can continue just to move the chains into the end zone. It's not necessarily a team that can, I guess like a couple years ago, there's been some times where they've been gashed up the middle. Even Mississippi State and I think Texas A&M for a little while, they were able to kind of, gash Alabama for the most part. But Alabama's interior linebackers are so talented. Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson. I mean, this team is built to stop the – I mean, it's a complete defense, honestly. But if anybody can pass on Alabama like LSU, that would be – I guess that's the key to beating them. I just don't see this team allowing, teams to run all over them. I mean, it hasn't happened. I don't think it will. I think the team that beats Alabama is a team that throws the football.
I'm giving Kyle the win because it was a Fugazi stat. They're only allowing 3-point yards per carry this year. Teams are just, for some reason, running their head against the fucking brick wall against them.
Oh,
dang it.
On the national hour, too.
That's on me. Sorry. What do you got for him?
All right, I got one more. I just actually thought about this one after thinking about teams over the past couple of years, but how do you think Alabama's going to overcome not necessarily having like an elite offensive weapon to rely on? When I think of the top teams in the country right now and the top teams that can compete for a title, and even teams in the past year like Alabama, when they had that insane group of wide receivers, LSU had an insane group of wide receivers. Georgia has had Brock Bowers over the years. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. up at Ohio State. How does Alabama overcome that along with not having necessarily a superstar at quarterback?
Yeah, that's a good question. The guy that has become a rideout, so a rideout, what that is a Jerry Jeudy, a Henry Ruggs, a Jalen Waddle, a Devontae Smith, a Jamison Williams. Those guys were called rideouts, John Mechie. Alabama didn't have a rideout last year. This year, there's one that has emerged, and that is Jermaine Burton. So Jermaine Burton last year, he wasn't that productive, and people were mad when he announced that he was coming back. Jermaine Burton this year has played pissed off. And you look at that game against Texas A&M where he completely took over. What do you have? 3 touchdown passes or something like that? He has been talking trash. He's been in everybody's ear. Like, he has become, honestly, one of the alphas on the offensive side of the ball. So he is a weapon, and he's been playing big time. I mean, he's been making contested catches. I think his average is, 22 yards downfield. And then you also have 007. Isaiah Bond, who is the fastest player on the team. He's also another wide receiver
for Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is he's electric with the football in hand, and Alabama's been dicing up people down the field because Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond are able to beat you over the top. And then you also have a weapon by the name of Mari Nyblock at tight end, and he's kind of been snuck in some of the schematics on the offensive side. He's got a couple touchdowns this year, and he's really Alabama's best tight end that they've had over the last 5 years because he's a wide receiver. Alabama has a variety of tight ends, but he's like one of those hybrids where he's like a wide receiver and a tight end. Sometimes they'll move someone off the line and someone slide him up and make him an eligible receiver when he wasn't, and they'll sneak him across to catch a touchdown. So they do have weapons, and they do have a stable of running backs that is capable to carry the workload. Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams. The best thing about Alabama overall is the fact that they're healthy. They're healthy on the offense. They're healthy on the defense. They're healthy on the special teams. So this has been the first time in a long time that I've covered Alabama where they're not hampered by these injuries. And it's a good thing for these guys going through this gauntlet, finishing out with LSU before they look to the back end, Kentucky, Chattanooga, and then Auburn.
I think the wide receiver skill set really fits right now, or has molded its way into fitting Milroe's skill set, which leads me to my next kind of point here before we wrap things up. This offense isn't, in my opinion, super creative. It's not the ones of the years past that we've seen from Alabama. To me, it seems very run, throw it 60 yards. Run a hitch. Okay, run. We're going to run a hitch and go. We're going to get somebody to bite up, and we're going to get that guy. It seems very much so that is the game plan. My question to you, Kyle, are they creative enough offensively to have consistent offensive outputs in December and in January?
I don't know. I would say no right now. It's just I think a lot of that is based on, the continued progression of Jalen Milroe and Tommy Rees with being, creative. We've seen him do a couple things that have been somewhat exciting. Look, I'm not asking for a reverse pass or anything like that, but figure out a way to get your best players the football. Alabama doesn't even run simple screens to their running backs. Like, they try to do it, but it was like a misdirection type screen, and Jalen Milroe got sacked twice by Tennessee. So they're starting to do stuff like that. But I honestly feel that with Tommy Rees, he came over from Notre Dame. He's 31 years old. In my opinion, I think he's a little bit overwhelmed having all these weapons at Alabama. And I think it's going to take him some time eventually to get kind of his system together. But look, the SEC is a lot different than being the OC at Notre Dame. 1,000,000%. I know everybody's excited about Notre Dame. And because when we were little, what did we watch? We watched Notre Dame. We put on the gold helmet. Domes. Look, they're pretenders. We've seen that a million times. Notre Dame, it's fun to have them back in college football. It's not the same at Alabama, I promise you. So being the OC here, completely different thing. I don't even know if Tommy Rees was Alabama's, if they specifically wanted him as target number one. I think he kind of went through the offensive coordinators and he was kind of one of the next best things. But he's growing. It's a lot different than Kevin Steele, who's, 67 years old. That guy's a grown man. He don't say shit. He just walks around. He's the alpha, and you see that defense kind of resonate from that.
Hey, you see a lot. I see a lot of people historically have stolen defensive concepts from Kevin Steele, one of which being Kirby Smart. Yeah. Kevin Steele was the team at Auburn that was the only team to hold LSU under 25 points that year, and they played a 3-3-5. And then you saw in the SEC championship game, Georgia rolled out a 3-3-5 against it as well. Hey, he is Kyle Henderson. Kyle, I still think Alabama's got way too many holes. I think the courtroom case is going to say way too many to be considered a staunch contender for the national title right now. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, come on, man. They're going to make a run. This is they're laying in the weeds, right, man? They're laying in the weeds. They're number 8. All these teams. Who are you taking? Washington? Don't tell me you're a Florida State guy. I love Jordan Travis. The Pac-12 is fun. Penix, I like the jerseys. The gold and purple is easy on the eyes. But overall, we know what's going to happen at the end of the year. Alabama's going to beat LSU. They're going to make a run over Kirby. They're going to go in the playoffs. Michigan is going to get kicked out of college football or something like that. And Alabama's going to raise the title with Jalen Milroe. Just wait.
He's got Crimson Tide covered glasses. He is Kyle Henderson. You can check him out on YouTube at Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson. Kyle, I appreciate you, baby. Did you have a good time, my man?
Yes, man. Thank you so much. My day's been long. I've been doing show after show, but I was looking forward to rapping with you guys. I really appreciate it. Keep up the product. So I have a whiteboard. I have 3 whiteboards. One is about goals, one is about business, and then one is for myself. And it says, be yourself, be authentic, put in the work, stay consistent. Be authentic. You guys will succeed.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Kyle.
See you guys.
Yeah, man.